G'day, g'day. There are 8 champions on the screen. We're going to be matching them up today, starting on the easiest, going through to the hardest ones, or the ones that need the most explanation. Now, I thought, how can I keep people entertained or engaged with the video? Because, with TikTok brains, memory of a goldfish, how can I keep these guys entertained to the point where I can go, yeah, they're going to watch the whole video? I've decided to change the color of the backgrounds because, what the hell was that? Because I feel like this will keep you entertained, because these backgrounds are going to go, yes, what is this now? Is it gold or is it red, So, anyway, moving on to the actual part of the video that isn't, go with me autistically explaining how backgrounds work. Pereira versus Ankalaev. This is really the only option for Alex Pereira. Number 1 contender in Ankalaev. Hopefully this happens at 3:13 and we don't have to wait till November next year where Ankalaev says, brother, I only want to fight in Abu Dhabi, brother, Because we can't be having that every single time from a champion or from a contender either way, or a guy that wants to... Because you're not calling the shots, Ankalaev. Dana's calling the shots, and then Pereira's calling the shots. You're third in line. You can't say, I only want it in this location that we go to once a year for a pay-per-view, because that's silly and stupid. I believe they only go there once a year for pay-per-view. I need to double-check that, but I think it is only once a year. Doesn't really matter. You can stay as a contender if you just keep wanting that to happen. So the next one is probably the... should have been the easiest option, but there is still a factor that goes into John versus Aspinall. Now, before I even get to Jones Aspinall, the background changed to red. Right, that's a big deal. Jones versus Aspinall. Now, the only reason why this is after Pereira and Ankalaev is because this fight might not even happen. Jones will literally retire before fighting Tom Aspinall. That's what I think. Now, this fight should happen because it is interim champ versus champ. But Jones might just retire and say, here you go, Tom. I give up my heavyweight belt. You can go fight Cyril Gane and knock him out in under a minute. So that could well happen. But if Jones is going to fight, it's going to be against Aspinall. Dana said it. Now, Dana's also said a lot of things that haven't been true. But we'll gloss over that because, So Jones versus Aspinall should happen and hopefully will happen, because if it doesn't happen, we're all going to have a crash out. And by all of us, I mean the entire UK and half American fans. And anyone that's an interim champ, can we just go? Interim champ should always be fighting the champion. Does not matter what situation, unless the champion's retiring, which Jones might just do because he's scared of Tom Aspinall. Moving on. Next option, Topuria versus Volk. I was going to say Evloev for a second. Lopez. Evloev Sterling will not be getting this. I don't care what happens. They are on the prelims of 310 for a reason. They are both boring and should be cut from the sport. Topuria beats both these guys in my opinion, and I think Lopez chins Volk and and Volk, he turns into Tony Ferguson and starts getting chinned by everyone. Or, beats Lopez and makes a comeback to the top of the sport and then gets chinned by Topuria again. These guys will hopefully be fighting in February at 312 in Sydney, Australia, down under, and I feel like that was a terrible accent for one, and I feel like hopefully this does happen. It has been leaked, but also the guy who's leaking has also said a bunch of things wrong. I'm pretty sure he just says whatever makes sense, and some of the times it works, some of the times it doesn't work. So, when it doesn't work, people forget. When it works, you sound like a genius, Notre Dame, Almost like me with my prediction skills. I'm just saying, I predicted Jan to beat Figueiredo, and he did it by the exact way he did it. 92% accuracy, whatever I'm at currently, someone can work it out. Doesn't really matter. Where was I? Oh, yeah. Volk's going to get chinned, and then Lopez is going to get chinned, then Topuria is going to be the GOAT of the sport. Moving on, Belal Muhammad. I feel like this really depends on what happens in Shavkat Gary, because if Shavkat beats Gary, it's undisputable that Shavkat will get a title shot. If Shavkat loses to Gary by some way of a miracle, to put it quite lightly, I feel like Belal won't be fighting Shavkat. He will instead fight JDM on that Sydney card as the main event, because that card currently does not have a champion on the card, right? It doesn't have a belt on the line. Now, they were just going to gloss over this and just put Volkanovski versus Lopez as an interim champ, despite the fact the champion literally fought a month ago. But it doesn't really matter, and he's not even injured. But I feel like because JDM is still a contender, they were going to put him against Usman, or so they say. It's from the same guy who just takes pot guesses, but Usman does make the most sense. Shavkat versus Belal only makes sense if Shavkat wins, but JDM versus Belal makes much sense if Shavkat loses. We're not giving Ian Gary a title shot in 2025 at all. He's going to get fraud checked by someone. Don't know who it's going to be. He's going to get fraud checked by someone. It'll be Shavkat Rakhmonov, but it might not be. Who knows? Next up, Merab. This depends entirely on whether Umar Nurmagomedov fights before or after Ramadan. Now, we all know that Merab is doing his world tour of saying, brother, come look at my belt, man. Defend belt. No, no, no. Now, firstly, let's just analyze that impression in a second once we analyze this horrible looking background. This is probably the worst choice in the entire video. Merab will probably come back in February. Let's be real here to try and avoid Umar because that'll be during Ramadan. However, if Umar fights in February against a contender, maybe a Cejudo, maybe an O'Malley, maybe someone, Song Yudong, then this makes sense. And then I can say, okay, Umar, he's not done a lot to justify a title shot, but he's done the same as O'Malley did to justify his title shot. Let's give him a shot. Let's give him a chance. But if he doesn't fight and he says, I wait for Merab, brother, I'm going to sit here and say what I'm always saying, and that is, you've beaten one contender, arguably the worst contender. No, that's a bit harsh on Sanhagen, but he's not even the worst contender. He wasn't a very strong top 5 pick, though. He hasn't, you've beaten one guy, you probably don't deserve it. Give someone else a chance. Not a chance, but give someone else who's more deserving a go, which is where O'Malley comes in. Now, O'Malley did get absolutely ragdolled by Merab in their fight. However, it wasn't like, Merab clearly won each round 5-0, 5-0. We sound like the gnomes from whatever the bloody Disney, I think it's Snow White, where 5-0, 5-0, 5-0. Okay, I feel like O'Malley, he contended round 1, big shot, he would have won it. Round 3, he won, and round 5, he won. That's almost 3-2. He almost won the whole fight. You get me? Like, it was a 47-48 or 48-47 Merab. Could have gone the other way if O'Malley hit a big shot in round 1. Let's not pretend it was a 5-0 demolishing. Moving on. Dricus du Plessis. Now, Sean Strickland now, big change to the background, obviously. Watch out if you have epilepsy, guys. Dricus du Plessis versus Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland is going to lose it, obviously, in my opinion, because he can't do anything except jab and teep. However, this is going to happen. They want to do the rematch. They don't want to just stick Chimaev straight in there. I don't think Chimaev's ready to fight anyway. This will probably be, because it's a headline of an event, either March or April, because they're not going to stick it, unless they put it in the January card with Islam and Arman, which is interesting. Or they could put it on the Australia card if they really do need a main event, because this is a main event in itself. It should not be a co-main event. Should not be co-main event. This isn't like bloody Pantoja versus Royale 3, This is a big event. It's a big fight. Should be in South Africa and should hopefully be in March, or it needs to be a main event in March, right? Or maybe April. I would like to see it sooner, but it just doesn't really make any sense to see it sooner. So March or April, this fight doesn't really need much explaining. Should be higher, but I feel like the rest of them kind of take priority because people forget, man. Next up, no one apparently. Nice one, but the background did change. Brandon Moreno versus the winner of Pantoja Asakura. Now, I made this whole thing a few days ago, except for the O'Malley one. I was waiting for the results of Yan versus Figueiredo. So I made this almost a week ago, and this made sense in my mind, but I looked through the heavyweight division and realized that division is dead. Asakura needs to win, or the entire division's ruined, realistically speaking. Maybe Brandon Moreno versus Pantoja rematch makes sense. Brandon Royval is still sitting on his number 1 contender spot. They might have to do a Brandon Moreno Royval 3 in the meantime. It's a horrible, horrible division with matchups that don't make any sense. Pantoja's beaten everyone. Either move Pantoja up to the bantamweight division and make him fight Merab, and so we can justify some sort of fight other than Umar happening, or just somehow spike Pantoja's drink, like protein shake before the before the flipping, what are we gonna say? The fight. I don't know how I managed to mess it up. Make sure that make him miss weight or something. So Asakura strip him of the belt, We need a new champion in the division. It's getting stupid at this point. So I put even though Brandon Moreno's face up there, you can might as well stick in bloody Ali Adib Aziz, man. Get him in there, right? I don't care if they make 125, stick him in there. You know, get some random guy from Vietnam and put him in there. I don't even care. Stupid matchup. Next up, lastly, is Islam versus Arman. Now, this is on a multiple range of factions, a bit like the Sean O'Malley versus Umar. And statistically, about 5 of you actually made it to this point in the video. So well done if you're part of that 5. Now, if Islam wins, we can use the last 2 in this little block of 3 people, because I do not want to see a Charles Oliveira rematch. Mainly because Charles has already he's already fought Islam, and Islam's like pretty much all of his title defenses. That's wrong. 60% of his title defenses at that point would be rematches, and we kind of want to see him against new opposition, really. Shame that the lightweight division has not changed because we haven't seen any new prospects anytime, so it's the same old faces every single time. Which is why I would like to see him against Topuria, who after fighting the winner of Volkanovski or Lopez, probably in July, maybe July or August, and then he fights at the end of the year against Islam. That makes sense. Or he fights Shavkat Rakhmonov if Rakhmonov goes up again. If Rakhmonov wins against Belal, which he probably will. So if Rakhmonov beats Gary first and then beats Belal, we see Islam versus Belal welterweight championship. If Islam wins, then we see him versus Topuria, and if Sarukian wins, which I kind of forgot he was there because he's going to lose. That's my prediction anyway. He fights Charles and then he fights Topuria. So he fights Charles or Topuria. I think the Charles Oliveira rematch makes more sense for Sarukian than it does for Islam. And I think it definitely does make sense to put him up against Topuria as well. So that's been this video. Let me know what you think of my picks. I think a lot of them are right, maybe except for the Brandon Moreno one. But the rest of them do make sense, hopefully. Let me know what you think of them. See you in the next time. Goodbye.